Cooking is a pretty easy metaphor for just about anything. In this case, I'm going to use it to demonstrate second language acquisition using one of my favorite comfort foods from my childhood, French toast. Skinner's behaviorism tells us that language learning is like following the recipe. We imitate, repeat, and improve with practice. Positive feedback encourages people to keep trying, while mistakes prompt adjustments. First, we need our ingredients. Now, French toast is a pretty basic recipe. All you need is bread, eggs, milk, vanilla, cinnamon, and a little bit of butter. Each of these ingredients represent the essential components of learning a new language. The bread is like vocabulary. It's the necessary ingredient that gives language its whole structure. French toast cannot be made without bread. There are different types of bread. Each has its own density, which can impact the final product. The eggs represent grammar. They are a binding agent, just like grammar holds language together. Eggs are a necessity in a lot of recipes. There are some substitutes you can use, just like different grammar rules can be used to produce a coherent language. The milk and spices are like pronunciation and cultural nuances. They give flavor, depth, and subtlety to the dish, similar to how pronunciation and cultural understanding do with language. Each of the ingredients have a specific role, just like every other component of language learning. Now, just like in language learning, it's not enough to have all the right ingredients. They have to be combined in the right way to get the desired outcome. Depending on what I want to make, I can combine these exact ingredients and have a delicious egg in a basket. This is where our French toast recipe comes in. In second language acquisition, we can think of the recipe as the input. According to Krashen's input hypothesis, learners need comprehensible input or information that is just a little beyond their current ability, referred to as +1. If the recipe is too simple, there's no challenge. If it's too hard, it's frustrating and easy to give up. So I'm keeping this recipe simple, but with just enough complexity to make it interesting. This seems like a silly big moment, dipping the bread in the egg mixture. If I don't have a sturdy enough foundation of vocabulary, the whole thing could disintegrate before I even begin. This step in the recipe is very much the first start of language learning, called the pre-production stage. At this stage, learners soak in the language around them. They are absorbing pronunciation and grammar just like the bread absorbs the egg mixture. Learners might not be speaking much yet, but they are still actively learning. I decided to go with a sourdough because I think it will bring a chewy texture that will hold up to toppings better than plain white sandwich bread. If the learning environment is rich and supportive, if the structure is absorbent enough, students absorb everything they need to begin the process. Vygotsky's zone of proximal development comes into play here too. I need to make sure the bread soaks the right amount. If I soak it too long and it's not the appropriate bread, it breaks apart. With the right bread and the right amount of soaking, we're ready for the next step. We're at the early production stage. This is where students start experimenting with words and simple phrases. It's like putting the bread on the heat. Just like students trying to speak in a new language, things might be a little messy at first. Maybe they flip it too soon, or they don't have the timing quite right and they accidentally burn it. That's okay. Mistakes are part of learning. Chomsky's innatism implies that we'll know when to flip the French toast without being told. It takes observation, but the idea is that we'll recognize patterns and learn. But I really think this is where Vygotsky's scaffolding comes into play. Just like a more experienced chef or cook might show you how to flip it properly, teachers, peers, and families support students as they try. Ideally, they need less and less help and eventually can feel confident in their own abilities to not need constant guidance. We have to fine-tune our instincts through trial and error and the guidance of others to internalize our talent and trust ourselves. This is also a great place to see Krashen's affective filter. If the environment is orderly and encouraging, my work is more likely to turn out great. If things are too chaotic or stressful, I might struggle to make a good product. When students feel safe and supported, they are more likely to succeed. Once a student or a chef gets enough skill and confidence, they can thrive in chaos, but they have to build to that level first. Now for the part we've been waiting for, customizing our own individual dishes. This step can represent speech emergence and fluency stages. Learners begin to personalize their language, adding in their own flavor. They start using idioms, slang, and expressions that reflect a unique identity. Simple toppings like powdered sugar and syrup are Cummins' basic interpersonal communication skills. They are easy to add and quick. Fancier toppings like fresh fruit and whipped cream take more time and skill to lead to a much better experience. Cummins' cognitive academic language proficiency. We have our final product. This is where students have reached the advanced fluency stage. They don't need to follow step-by-step instructions. They have mastered the ingredients, the techniques, and the timing, and can now further customize their dishes and create new things with the same skills. Like Cummins' common underlying proficiency, they can apply those same skills to things like pancakes or crepes. The language skills students develop in their first language transfer to their second language. They can apply what they know to new challenges. Start with the basics, lean on support when you need it, and never be afraid to add your own flavor.